Let's take you to the presidential villa, where the Federal Executive Council, chaired by President Bola Tinubu, has approved the 2026 to 2028 Medium Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF), which will now be transmitted to the National Assembly. The framework sets key fiscal and macroeconomic targets and allocates resources to critical sectors, including healthcare, agriculture, and digital infrastructure. TVC News State House correspondent Femi Akonde has more.
The framework sets the benchmark crude oil price at $64.85 per barrel in 2026, with projected production of 1.84 million barrels per day and a target of 2.06 million barrels per day. The exchange rate is projected at 1,512 naira, while inflation is expected to average at 18%. Nominal GDP is projected at 557 trillion naira, while non-oil GDP at 550 trillion naira. Nominal consumption is at 446 trillion naira. By 2027, GDP growth is expected at 5.96%, and by 2028 at 7.9%, with nominal consumption exceeding 642 trillion naira. As of July 31, 2025, the budget deficit stood at 6.73 trillion naira, financed through domestic and foreign borrowings, highlighting the government's balance between fiscal discipline and development priorities. Minister of Budget and Economic Planning Atiku Bagudu explains how the framework integrates technical and stakeholder input to strengthen fiscal management. Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy Wale Edu emphasizes the need for strategic investments and efficient spending across ministries.
There is a commitment to stick to, as much as possible, revert to a normal budget cycle, January to December. That's the commitment. It takes all parties agreeing and working towards that laudable goal.
The commitment in the MTF to sustain funding for the basic health care fund means that more primary health care centers will be revitalized in line with the agenda of Mr. President to put primary health care at the cornerstone of our healthcare delivery.
About 23 million Nigerians are currently underserved, meaning that they are unable to do any form of communications due to the absence of some of these towers that are not available in their communities.
The MTEF also outlines sectoral allocation, including funding for education, security, and social welfare programs. Total federal government revenue for 2026 is projected at 22.6 trillion naira, with states expected to receive 16.3 trillion naira and local governments 11.85 trillion naira. Debt services is projected at 10.91 trillion naira, while personnel and pension costs will total 15.27 trillion naira. The fiscal deficit is expected at 20.1 trillion naira, representing 3.61% of the GDP. As the Tinubu administration pushes ahead with its fiscal reforms, the 2026 to 2028 framework now heads to the National Assembly, where its assumptions and projections will face further scrutiny. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.